There's a wound that most men are carrying that not enough people are talking about. It's the father wound. I'll certainly share how it shows up for me, and you can consider if part of this story resonates with you, or if there's something that you can take away from this so that you can start to learn how to work with the wounding and conditioning that so many of us men grew up with. So whether it was challenge or direction or support or a rite of passage that you were missing growing up, part of that you can still get as an adult today. And at least for me growing up, my dad wasn't really around physically. He worked a lot of shift work. He wasn't really around emotionally either. He was often drunk or sleep deprived. And part of me growing up, especially as a teenager, I really remember craving this masculine role model around. And sometimes he would be there physically, but not really engaged or attached or really teaching me what I needed to know at that age. And part of what I actually wanted as a young man, as a teenager, was challenge, right? I wanted to be challenged on the things that I thought were right in some weird way, right? I wanted direction. I wanted to know that I should and I shouldn't do certain things. And my dad just wasn't really around for that. Everyone's dad showed up in different ways. Some guys' dads were overly aggressive and overly involved, but at least for me, my dad was less involved. And, you know, I started to push back. Young men really need things to push up against so that they can feel themselves and know themselves as a man. And when we don't have that, we start to find other things to push up against. And naturally, that's what I did. I started to push up hard against things. In fact, I started to fight. And I would fight other people. I would fight myself. I would fight life. I was really in this struggle where I was just desperately trying to feel myself. And it got me in a lot of trouble, right? I would really abandon my health and my safety a lot as a young man. I'd get in fights and get drunk, and I'd, fall on my face and just seek extreme sports to just feel something. And, that's what happens to young men when we don't have a rite of passage, when we don't have a clear-cut understanding of who we're meant to be in the world and who we are and what we're capable of, and furthermore, what we're not capable of. I actually think that was my bigger issue, was realizing that I had a limit. I wasn't sure where that limit was because I didn't have the containment growing up. So I was constantly just pushing beyond my threshold, and seriously, it got me in a lot of trouble, a lot of injury, a lot of sickness, a lot of trouble with the police and in school and in relationships. So really, who teaches a boy to become a man? Well, if you didn't have that growing up, you probably developed an unhealthy relationship to anger, people pleasing, non-commitment, not great habits, maybe addiction. So where is the blueprint for young men to become trustworthy, to become integral, to not people please, to have control of their anger, to really know themselves in this world, to trust other men? If we didn't have that growing up, we need to find a way to introduce it now as adults. And if we don't, we end up being in adult bodies, but having the emotional intelligence of a teenager. And you see this a lot in society until men get together with other conscious men. And for me, the absence of that growing up has only recently, in the past few years, been fulfilled with other good men that I can trust and rely on. And this has come from men's groups, from sitting in conscious men's groups week after week, getting to know men and trust men again and rely on men, and also have men rely on me. Part of being responsible as part of the men's group is actually having other guys that need me to show up as my best, need me to show up as emotionally available, need me to show up as healthy, so that they can also lean on me sometimes. And I think my perception of men has changed over the years when I started to understand that men's work isn't just about what can I get out of this, but really it's about what can I give. And when you give and you have the responsibility to give and contribute in the world, your gifts start to come through. You know how to yield your powers, and you know how to use them with responsibility. So part of healing any father wound really starts with getting yourself around other good men, men that can contribute to you, but also that you can contribute to them. Most men are living in a man's suit, in a man's body, but with the emotional blueprint of a teenager. See, they never went through the update that's required for boys to become men. And so what ends up happening is men either fall into one of two categories. The first being overcorrecting. So it's hypervigilance, it's aggression, it's white knuckling, and it's doing things on your own. It shows up as aggression and dominance. You could call this toxic masculinity. The other side to it is men that show up weak, passive. They're people pleasers, and they're really just disconnected from their own power. And neither side of this is healthy. Healthy masculinity is not about the self. Both of those versions are obsessions with the self, either protecting the self with passivity and people pleasing, or asserting the self with dominance and control. But the truth is that healthy masculinity really shows up in service. Being of service to others helps us demonstrate drive, but also humility. We need to be creating in the world. We need to have drive. We need to have our fire and be comfortable wielding that fire, yet staying humble so we don't burn ourselves. But you just can't get there if you're still running on the boy's blueprint. Carl Jung said that the unmet needs of our fathers don't disappear. They just get transferred to the next generation. He says that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our entire life, and we'll call it fate. This is my favorite quote of all time, because there's so much truth in it. The reality is, to heal this wound, to reveal the unconscious, we need the support and reflection of others. I firmly believe that men need other men to reflect back to them. By nature of having these wounds, particularly the father wound, we get really good at developing these masks, these personas, and ultimately this level of bullshit that we carry around with us. And men can see other men's bullshit. Women can see it too, but they're less likely to speak to it and reflect it back to us. Men can be very direct and call each other forward on their bullshit. And that's part of why men should be in a men's group, right? A really good conscious men's group is supporting each other, but also calling each other forward and just cutting through the BS that we all have to some degree. So when I joined a conscious men's group and I started to have men in my life that I could look up to and trust, I really started to understand where I was hiding, where I was wearing the mask, where I was pretending, where I was a little bit of an immature dreamer. And I could be called forward on that to take action. I couldn't hide anymore in my own little realm. I was seen and I was given guidelines and direction and challenge to really feel myself. And all of a sudden I started to really trust myself more. And in fact, I also started to trust other men more, which meant that I started to trust life more. And it's a slow burn, right? It doesn't happen overnight, but by continuously showing up to a group of men that have your back, want the best for you, and are there to support you and challenge you, you start to develop over time this ease, this trust in life, knowing that if you just take the steps and you're held accountable to the steps by the other men in the group, you'll move forward in a good way. You'll stop fighting with yourself. You'll stop fighting with other people, other men, and you'll stop fighting life. There's a harmony that exists when you get to that place, not wearing any masks anymore. You're just comfortable in yourself, in all of your shortcomings, and all of your triumphs. Men's work really gives you what your father couldn't. And the longer that we're in this work, the stronger our father wound gets healed. Because we can't go back in time, we can't change the wounds that we adopted, but we can work with them. And oftentimes, if we work with our wounds long enough and in the right container and setting, they become our superpower. They become the part of us that we carry that's uniquely ours. Part of our story to tell that we had it really tough and we made it through. So the way that you feel in the world, the way that you talk to the world, the inner trust and confidence you have in yourself, your relationships, your career, all of that starts to shift when we start to heal our wounds, when we make the unconscious conscious. So if you feel like you need some healing, you need some support, you need some fire, you need a place to put your anger or your grief or your sadness or your joy and your wins, find a conscious men's group that will support that. We have a free group. It's called Good Man Friends. You can find us on Mighty Networks. It's a free group to join. And the whole DNA of the organization is click a button, make good man friends. It's really that simple. We have men's groups meetings for free every week, twice per week. I hope to see you there. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. We'll chat soon.